So the Premier League winners have now won the FA Cup as well. The domestic double for Manchester City, a 2-1 win over rivals Manchester United at Wembley, and potentially the second part of a treble with the Champions League final to come next Saturday against Inter. Mark Donaldson alongside Stevie Nicol will be joined by Rob Dawson from Wembley shortly. But City won it 2-1, Stevie. What kind of FA Cup final did we see today?
Well, I think for half an hour we saw why Manchester City are not only double winners after this victory, but going for a treble. You know, they completely and utterly dominated this game for 33 minutes up until Manchester United got that fortunate penalty that brought things level. I mean, an incredible start. What a volley from Gundogan. I mean, dream start doesn't begin to explain it. But the way they played, though, for that 33 minutes, it was completely and utterly one-sided. And obviously, when you have that much domination, you need to try and put the game away. And unfortunately for City, as good as they were, they couldn't put it away. And then they lose the penalty. So, you know, going in at half-time, if you're a United player or fan, you're happy to get off the field and start again on level terms going into the second half.
It was some strike by Ilkay Gundogan. It was the sixth touch of the game, officially timed at 12 seconds now. And only one Manchester United player, Lindelof, got a touch, and he headed it against De Bruyne. And it's just a technique that was world class. And there's not much Man United could do about that as far as not conceding to Gundogan there. But is there anything from the kickoff they could have done better to prevent Gundogan from being in that position?
It's about the second ball. You know, when a ball's just fired forward from the goalkeeper, can you win the first challenge? And if you can't win the first challenge, can you win that second ball? Well, they actually had two other bites at the cherry as well. They didn't win the header from Haaland, and then the header from Lindelof drops into an area, and Gundogan's sitting there waiting, and there's nobody close enough to him. So, look, it's just about a little bit of fortune, no question. A little bit of fortune. The ball ends up at Gundogan, but reading the second ball is key in these situations. And if you don't do that properly, then you give the opposition an opportunity. And my goodness, did Gundogan take that opportunity? As you said, world class, calm as you like, through the laces. De Gea, quite rightly, didn't even bother trying to save it because he wouldn't have got anywhere close to it. Yeah, fantastic start and a superb goal, superb strike.
Yeah, Rodri had a chance after that to make it 2-0. Again, David De Gea just looked and couldn't do much about it, but it hit the side netting. And City up to that point were in complete control. But complete control different from the complete control they had against Real Madrid, wasn't it? Because that was up-tempo. This was different. This was more containment and keeping the ball, but not quite at the same pace because they didn't need to, that they played against Real Madrid in the second leg.
Yeah, of course, United was very deep. And so when you're one up, you don't need to push it. Yes, you want to keep the ball, but you don't need to force it. That's probably a better word. And so that's probably why that little intensity that we saw against Real Madrid wasn't there, because it didn't have to be. They were more interested in trying to be patient, wait for Man United to leave some holes, and then try and take advantage of it. And as I said, unfortunately, they couldn't quite do that. I guess you got to give credit to United. They stayed strong, and after that header from Rodri, there really wasn't an awful lot in terms of even half chances to speak about. At the same time, Man City did push them back. And so really, you got to say that City went about it the right way. Had they tried to force it, as I was talking about, and give the ball over, turn the ball over, then that's kind of what Manchester United were wanting them to do, so that they could then break. Because that's what Man United was all about in this game. Other than the last 10 minutes, when you're a goal behind in a cup final and you're throwing everything but the kitchen sink,
yeah,
you know, they're really looking to get on the break. And so, in some ways, it was smart play from City, keeping the ball and avoiding Manchester United getting a break. Well, certainly a breakthrough football. They got the break with the penalty, no question. we can't argue. Had it been the other end, City would have wanted the penalty and would have gotten it as well. Jack Grealish is unfortunate that his momentum made his arm come up, and the ball did strike his hand. So, as they say in the commentary, in today's game, that is a penalty, and it got United back in the game, which at the time you absolutely can say they didn't deserve it.
Let's head over to Wembley now and bring in Rob Dawson, talking about the penalty, Rob. And technically, it's a penalty 100 times out of 100. It's just horrible these days that is the way that the law has been written and is interpreted, because the problem here is with the lawmakers who've decided that incidents like that merit a penalty, and that's where we are these days. Hopefully, it'll be changed over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very harsh decision. I mean, by the letter of the law, it's a penalty. I'm not quite sure what Jack Grealish can do. He's trying to deal with a ball that's coming over his head. He's twisting in midair, and he's trying to face up to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I'm not really sure what he's meant to be doing with his hands. If his hands aren't in the air, where are they going to go? I think probably it's one of those that Jack will have felt it hit his hand. He'll have known at that point that he was in trouble. But you could tell by the protest afterwards that he felt that it was very, very harsh. And you're right in what you say, that at the time of the penalty, I wasn't really sure where United were going to find a way back into the game. They weren't creating chances. They weren't even creating half chances. And really, a harsh penalty has helped them getting back into a game that they looked a little bit lost in. I think, if we were dealing with a result at the end of that where United had won the game because the game had turned on a penalty decision like that, we probably wouldn't have heard the end of it. I think probably in the end, City, the right team, have won because they made their dominance pay and got that second goal. I must say, I think if United had gone on to win it because of that penalty decision, it's one of those decisions that you would have been here talking about for months and months.
Yeah, at half-time in the coverage over in the United Kingdom, Peter Schmeichel said that prior to the penalty, he would have been happy to go in trailing by a 0-0, but then they could have scored, couldn't they? Raphael Varane, Rob, to make it 2-1 and go in ahead. But maybe if it was Marcus Rashford or somebody else, it might have ended up in the back of the net. But it was a little bit of a warning to City that despite all their possession, that United remained a threat.
Yeah, I mean, inside the stadium, the energy inside the stadium turned completely after that penalty. I mean, before that penalty, the United fans were very quiet. The United weren't really having spells of possession. They weren't really managing to string many passes together at all. But when the penalty goes in, the mood inside the stadium changes and the momentum shifts. And all of a sudden, United look a little bit more like they're capable of creating chances. And really, throughout the 90 minutes, United's only spell of not dominance, but any kind of threat was in that little period after the penalty. And it was the only time, really, where City had a little wobble. You mentioned that chance that Varane had. Maybe if that's a striker, it's more of a clear-cut opportunity. I mean, in the second half, really, United haven't really had a chance of no. They've had one really from Marcus Rashford from outside the box, and maybe he should have felt they could hit the target with. At the end of a cup final, you're always going to have to deal with a little bit of spell of pressure when you're chasing the game. But aside from that, really, City have been in complete control. People who maybe haven't watched the game will see the game has ended 2-1 and think, oh, that's quite a tight game. Really, being inside the stadium, watching on TV, it didn't feel like that type of game at all.
Stevie, just before Varane's chance, a couple of minutes before, a challenge by Fred on Kevin De Bruyne wasn't given by referee Paul Tierney as a penalty. What did you make of that incident?
Well, initially I thought it was a penalty because, in my eyes, Fred made no attempt to go for the ball. He basically went for Kevin De Bruyne, and I think Fred's fortunate that the ball's just about close enough where the referee and the VAR can think that he's trying to shield it. So, look, you can't give a penalty in an FA Cup final unless you really are sure that it's a penalty and it's a foul. And I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say I'm not 100% sure that it is a foul.
Yeah.
My initial reaction was it was, but I'm not sure. And if you're not sure, you can't give it. But he's really, it's right on the edge, because the question for me would be, does the referee think the ball's close enough to Fred that he's shielding it? As I said, the first time I saw it, I didn't think so. But you're not 100%, you can't give it, not in a cup final.
Okay, what turned out to be the winning goal, Rob, was the Kevin De Bruyne corner. And the first goal was the right foot volley, and the second one was a left foot volley. There's one angle, I'm not sure if you've seen it just yet, but it shows David De Gea taking a slight step to his left just before Gundogan hits the volley. And that means he's out of the game. He can't get to it. But you could argue that a goalkeeper in that position, it wasn't as sweetly struck as the opening goal. It's come through a whole lot of bodies. Should David De Gea be doing better for Manchester City's winning goal from Gundogan?
Yeah, I must say that goal happened in our end here, the end of the stadium where the press box is. And I must say, when the shot comes in and goes in the net, you feel immediately that David De Gea should have done better. There is an angle from behind Gundogan where it obviously comes through a lot of bodies. I think Varane tries to charge it down. It goes through his legs or over his leg. So you could possibly say that De Gea is a little bit unsighted. But really, for a volley to go in from that area of the pitch, you really expect it to be quite a clean strike, and it certainly wasn't at all. From our angle, it almost looked like it kind of bobbled inside the post. Obviously, the placement of it was perfect because it did just sort of shave the inside of the post. But I must say, when I was watching it live, I did feel that the David De Gea should have done better. I think the whole situation should have been defended better, because Kevin De Bruyne's free kick was also from our side of the press box, and you could see exactly what he was doing. He had two looks at the edge of the box to see where Gundogan was. Yeah. And United was so deep in the box that they had no chance of getting out at all. It was pretty obvious, really, that Kevin De Bruyne was going to clip a little free kick to the edge of the box and let someone shoot. And if I can see that in the press box, presumably United defenders can see that. So, yes, David De Gea probably should have done better, but I think the whole situation, from United's point of view, should have been defended better.
Stevie, as a defender who's played and won in FA Cup finals, would you have hoped that Bruce Grobbelaar, whoever was behind you, would have saved something if that was a similar situation?
I think it would have been a bit harsh on De Gea. You know, did he take a little step to his left? Well, you know what? If you can't see, then you can't just decide to stay in a position where you can't see the ball. You've got to try and see it as quickly and as early as you can. And you know, he just chose to go to the left-hand side to see it, which meant that there was a little bit more space on the right. I think it's harsh to point a finger at De Gea. The ball goes in the corner, it goes through bodies. I mean, I think that's harsh. I do, however, agree 100%. The ball's not pinged from De Bruyne. This thing's floated 50 yards. And for nobody to react in a red jersey quick enough, that's where the fault lies, in my opinion. Not at De Gea, but defensively. And it's every one of them. Because there's 10 of them that could have read it early and who could have made an attempt to go and close the ball early, and none of them did until it was too late. So, yeah, I'm putting this on the outfield players, not really on De Gea.
Well, look, there's an element of modern day life. It's the blame culture. We're looking for a scapegoat or whatever. Bottom line is, accentuating the positive, it's a left foot volley, having already scored a right foot volley, and he scored twice. And Rob, he's out of contract. In the summer, he's been linked with Arsenal, he's been linked with Barcelona. Supposedly, Pep wants to keep him. Have those two goals basically inked a new deal for Gundogan? And if it is a 2-year deal that he's wanting, he's 32, just give him that?
He's not doing his pace any harm at all, because often at the end of the season, City players have been joking that in the run-in, Ilkay Gundogan turns into Prime Zidane, and he's done it again. He did it on the last day of last season, scoring twice against Aston Villa. He scored twice against Leeds, twice against Everton in the running for the Premier League this season, and he scored twice at Wembley, and also almost had a hat-trick and had a goal ruled out through offside. You know, just in these huge games, Gundogan seems to have that massive influence. And you talk about City having these fantastic players like Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, these really creative players. Ilkay Gundogan, again and again, proves to be the difference in these massive games, and you wouldn't bet against him having another massive contribution against him for next week. Pep Guardiola was already very, very keen to keep Gundogan at the club. It's clear that he wants a longer deal than he's currently being offered at City. He's got a chance to possibly go to Barcelona, possibly go to Arsenal. I think now, even more so, Pep Guardiola and City will be trying absolutely everything to keep Gundogan in this club, because in these huge games, he has a massive, massive impact.
Stevie, there were many games during the season that City were absolutely cruising, and then it got a wee bit nervy towards the end when they let in a goal or two. But after that second goal went in, certainly for me, you just kind of felt that they've got United at arm's length. And as Rob mentioned, there's obviously going to be the send everybody forward at the end, and Varane, I think, hit the bar when McTominay was involved. But did you also get the feeling that when City went ahead, then they were not in cruise control, but they were very comfortable with that lead?
To be honest, I wasn't particularly thinking about City because when you're 2-1 up in the cup final and the clock's getting towards the end of the game, then I don't care how good a team you are, there is a tendency to try and hold on to what you've got and just don't make a mistake. And as I said, I was thinking more about United. I was trying to figure out how are United going to break them down, because I don't remember one bit of play where it involved 2 or 3 players and passing and moving and getting in behind or cutting people up. You know, there was no zip or imagination or anything like that coming from United from the first whistle to the last. They put the pressure on, no question, the last 10 minutes, but it's desperation time. You're throwing balls in. And the fact that Varane again was the one that was hit, the one that hit the bar, tells you how inept they pretty much were going forward. So no surprise that City got a little deep, but no surprise that Manchester United couldn't really muscle any real football. It was all about winning challenges and winning second balls. And just before Varane hits the bar, I'm pretty sure Ortega makes a really good save from, I think it might have been Shaw, when the ball broke and he comes out, and that's how it ended up at the head of Varane, I think, off the goalkeeper. So again, it was a half chance that came about, not from good football, but just desperation with time running out in a cup final. And so United, they can't really look back in this game and think that they had it and they lost it, because they really never went and grasped it. It really was City's, and City deserved it.
Well, Manchester United had the opportunity to stop City from emulating what United did in 1999 and get the treble, but they now are one step away. Final question to you, Rob. If Manchester City go ahead and beat Inter next Saturday, they get the domestic treble, like Ferguson and Manchester United did in 1999. Is it too early to try and have the conversation and the potential argument about, is Pep better than Fergie? Is Fergie better than Pep? Because if we don't have it, someone else is going to have it. Where would a win next week in the Champions League final and a treble for Manchester City put Pep in the pantheon of legendary managers?
What a question. Does he rival Ferguson? Probably. I mean, Ferguson's genius was in his longevity. That he ended up winning 13 Premier League titles. To do it so well for so long, I think deserves to be in a class of your own. But Pep Guardiola certainly deserves to be in that conversation. That the dominance that Ferguson had with United when he was in charge is being emulated by City and Pep Guardiola now. They've won 5 out of the last 6 Premier League titles. Had been in 2 of the last 3 Champions League finals. They've won the FA Cup today. They've been in the last 4 FA Cup semi-finals. City are the dominant force in English football, and I think victory over Inter next week will confirm their places as the best team in the world at the moment. I think Pep would probably have to go on and win a few more Premier League titles, a few more trophies to really start matching Sir Alex Ferguson's record. But if you talk about genius coaches and the tactics that he's introduced, the way that his teams play, the way that he figures out how to beat teams, he certainly deserves to be in that conversation, and that won't change whether they win or lose against Inter next week. I think Pep Guardiola's already done enough to be a part of that conversation, beating Inter next week and winning another Champions League title, winning City's first Champions League trophy. We'll just confirm his place among those great coaches.
Rob Dawson at Wembley, thank you so much. ESPNFC.com for all of Rob's scribings.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.